Hello everybody, welcome back to part 3 of our tutorial here for the PMDG 777. Once again, we are going from London Heathrow over to Vancouver, British Columbia. So we finished up our CDU pre-flight in the last episode. I'm actually doing this on a different day. I was really hoping we could have air traffic control online when we did this, but due to just schedules and stuff, that's not going to work, so I figured we'd go ahead and record this now. We're pretty much right where we left off last time. I've kind of reset up the flight, so I still have ground connections enabled, so let's remove those. There's a couple things I wanted to touch on, actually, that I missed or did incorrectly last time by. First was I powered up the airplane by selecting the external power first. Really, to be safe, I should have turned the battery on first. Doesn't really cause any damage, and like I said, we're in a simulator, so it's not like it's an enormous deal. Second, I really should have disconnected the external power first before I turned off the external power before I disconnected it. Again, not a huge deal, but the right thing to do. Okay, so since we're doing this on a different day, things have changed a little bit. The winds and the weather are a little different. So before we were going to take the what were we going to take? We were going to take the Woburn departure off of I think 27 left is what we were planning. Now though, because of the winds, we're going to take runway 9 right, and so that puts us on the Buzzard departure. Not a whole lot of difference. Aside from it's going the other way. You can see the charts there on the screen, how that differs. A couple other things I forgot is when I was initializing our route, I forgot to put our flight number in. So let's go ahead and put that in. We're Air Canada 855. Okay. I also forgot to put in a transition level. So, gone to our VNAV climb page here. If you've flown in the United States, the transition level is always 18,000 feet, or flight level 180. It varies in Europe, both depending by country and also sometimes depending on the altimeter setting for the day. So today our QNH, let me reset that. QNH is actually 1007. Our transition altitude is 6,500 feet, 6,500. So when we pass through 6,500 feet, that's when we'll switch our altimeters over from the local setting of 1007 to the standard setting of 1013. The last final thing I wanted to mention that I forgot is that you'll notice on our legs here, we fly a heading and then we fly a track. So a track you can think of as a wind-corrected heading. So if you are flying a heading of 360 and the wind is directly from the west, you're actually going to have to turn your nose a bit to the left in order for you to track directly north across the ground. Luckily, the 777 has a really easy way to do that, and that's you hit this track button here, and now on our PFD navigation display, it'll actually show a track of 051 versus a heading of 051. Okay, so with that, we are ready to do our before start flows. Go ahead and turn our seatbelt sign on. Okay, and let's have a look here. I'm just going to pull up some charts on the other screen, just so I'm ready for them to talk about them. Okay, so before start checklist, flight deck doors closed and locked. Obviously we're in a simulator, but I actually use this opportunity, especially when I'm flying online. If my wife's home or the pets are being a little annoying, I actually close the door to my office. That's sort of my secure cockpit methodology. Mode control panel is set. Our V2 is 169. We're going to be tracking 051, and we'll have an altitude of 6,000, so that's all set. Takeoff speeds, V1 is 147, VR is 158, V2 is 169. Again, that's a little different from the last video, but that's just because we're using a slightly different flight plan, slightly different weights, but no big deal. CDU pre-flight is completed, and I should probably finish doing my the 4 start procedures here before I do anything else. So let's, I'm going to pull up the hydraulic synoptic here. Now, again, these are called synoptics. These are just sort of a quick way to look at the status of your systems. It's interesting to note that what is displayed here is not actually necessarily what's happening, it's what's being commanded to happen. So for instance, all my hydraulics are shut down now. I'm going to go ahead and turn these on in a moment, and what it's going to show is the commanded position of the pump that I put in, not necessarily what the actual position is. There is an order that you have to turn these on in, or should turn them on in. You should start with the right electric pump, turn that to auto. You can see the pressure starting to build there on the right hand side, and then the flow line comes up. Once that fault light goes out, which it has, we turn on the center electric pumps. You can see those coming up to pressure. 3,000 is the PSI we're looking for here. One of those fault lights will extinguish, and there it is, and then we'll do our demand pumps. Or the left electric demand pump. And here that one comes up to pressure. And then once that one's up, we'll turn our center air pumps to auto. So again, these demand pumps are all in auto. The remaining pumps are in the on position. Some of them still have a fault light on, but that's okay because those engines aren't running yet. I'll go ahead and turn our fuel pumps on. So we have fuel in both the left and right tanks. You can leave those cross feed valves in their off position, but we do have fuel in the center tank, so we'll turn those on as well. We're going to get pressure lights initially, but that's expected. Okay. Now, let's take a look. I'm just going to sort of reset some things here. Take a look at our flight controls. So now that our hydraulic systems are powered, we can set our stabilizer trim. And our center of gravity today is 27%, which gives us a trim of 5.0 units. So we'll trim up to 5.0 units. There you can see stabilizer trim 5. You can also set it down here. That's 5 units there. Really what you want to make sure is you're in the green. And in most cases, or in almost all cases, you're just going to want to follow what's on your CDU there. Okay, moving back to our checklist then. Our trim, we've set 5.0 units right there. Our aileron trim is 0. And our elevator trim is 0. Taxi and takeoff briefing. So the takeoff briefing is relatively straightforward for the buzz-ad departure. Let me pull that chart up here so I can talk through it. Let's see. Heathrow charts. There we go. Okay, so the buzz-ad departure. So that's we're on the buzz-ad for Juliet is what we're expecting. That's the departure for runway 9 right. So let's climb straight ahead. Let's take a look at our CDU here. Climb straight ahead to the London 2 DME. Then turn left to track 051 to intercept the London VOR 072. There's that. And cross London 10 DME at or above, what is that, 3,000. Okay, then left turn to the Biggin VOR, across Biggin 20 at or above 5,000. There's that 5,000A. This large type indicates that is the value specified by the procedure. So large type says the procedure tells us to be at 5,000A or above. You'll also see B, that would be 5,000 or below. And you'll also see just 6,000 there, which is what we're supposed to be at buzz-ad. That means we're going to level off there at 6,000 feet. As far as our taxi, we are parked at kind of the tail end of Pier 5 here. And so we're going to take off to 9 right. So what we'll do is we'll taxi down taxiway Foxtrot, take a right onto taxiway Bravo, and then you can see these red names here: Hanley, Dasso, Vicus, Oster, Horka. These are all hold short points, so if air traffic control was online, they would say Air Canada 855, runway 9 right, taxi via Foxtrot, Bravo, hold short Oster. And so that would be our taxi route, and then when we get to Oster, they would tell us to delete a monitor tower. So with that being done, our taxi and takeoff briefing is completed. And now the only remaining thing to do is turn our beacon on. And there it is. And with that, our before start checklist is complete. So let's call our ground crew, and we're going to have them push us back with our nose to the right. And then a couple other things here. I'm just going to turn the navigation range display here down to the minimum on my side. And Heathrow is one of those areas which you have your transponder on all the time, so there's our transponder on. And there they are coming to the cut. For some reason I'm not getting audio on my pushback truck, but that's okay. Now, as far as our start procedure goes, it's relatively straightforward. You want the engine display on the lower ICAS. You have to make sure that your APU, of course, is running, or you have some sort of air source. Unlike with the 737, you don't have to worry about turning off your packs or anything like that. 777 has an auto start system that makes this all very, very simple, and it automatically shuts off our packs, shuts down our air conditioning. Very, very easy to do. So what we're going to do, they're ready for us to release the brakes now, as we see up there. All we're going to do when we're ready to start is we're going to we're going to start engine number 2 first. It's currently in the normal position. We'll turn it to start. We're then going to monitor down here for N2. That's the second stage turbine in the engine. Once we see N2, we'll move the fuel control switch to run. At which point we'll look for N1 to rise, we'll look for oil pressure to rise, and then eventually once N2 kind of hits its maximum, the auto start system will introduce fuel. So you'll see the FF, fuel flow, start to increase. And at that point the EGT, the exhaust gas temperature, will start to rise and rise and rise. And that'll spike at a certain point. We just want to make sure that it's not above the red line there, and then eventually come back down. I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm not going to monitor this for this one. A, we've got an auto start system. B, it's a simulator. And C, it's kind of fun to look outside while this is going on. So, with that, we'll release our parking brakes. Parking brakes are released. And he says all engines clear, start at will. So, engine 2 to start. There comes the N2, fuel control to run. Here comes N1, and we'll take a look outside. So you can see the engine, the N1 fan there, the outboard fan, the forward fan starting to spin up. And if we were to look inside the cockpit right now, we would see there goes fuel flow. You can hear the engine starting to come up. And then we'll jump back in the cockpit, and there we can see exhaust gas temperature is coming up, oil pressure is rising, we have fuel flow, and then you'll hear momentarily a click as that, I already did it actually. It'll automatically spring back to normal after it's done with the start. So engine 1 to start, N2, fuel control to run. And there between the nose gear you can see engine number 1 starting to spin up. N2 is maxed out. Here comes the fuel flow. There comes the exhaust gas temperature. And you can hear the engine running out. Okay, you just heard that snap as the start switch snapped back to normal. Get a little better view of the overhead here. Now you'll see there's still some lights on up here. Boeing uses what's called a dark cockpit philosophy. That being that when everything's working normal, you shouldn't see any lights on the overhead. You still see lights that even though the packs are in the auto position, they're off. That's because it's using air from the bleed air system to start the engines. Additionally, the left engine bleed is not on yet. It's commanded on, but it's still off. There it goes. as the start procedure finishes up. And we are sort of turning out here from stand 340. I pushed back from this gate before, and they will actually put us essentially so our tires are right on the edge of the grass there, but yeah, I'll go ahead and tell them to stop the pushback now. Okay, so we've stopped our pushback. And they're asking to set brakes, so parking brakes are set. Now that we have 2 good engine starts, we'll go ahead and turn our APU off. And we will set our auto brakes to RTO. That's rejected takeoff. That means that if for some reason we abort our takeoff, it will apply maximum braking power to make sure that we stop as fast as possible. I'm going to arm LNAV and VNAV. That's our lateral and vertical navigation. Those are the cues we're going to follow on the flight director as we climb out. I'm going to go ahead and blank the lower display. There's no need for that right now. If there's any issues, that'll pop up and let us know that there's issues going on. Finally, on the left inboard, let's go ahead and look at our checklist. So there goes the ground crew pulling back. I hit the APU shutdown. You can see it's an APU cooldown right now. It actually runs through about a 1-minute cooldown procedure before it actually shuts down. So let's take a look at our before taxi checklist. So anti-ice, it's not required today, but we'll just leave it in the auto position. So anti-ice is auto. Recall has been checked. Our auto brakes are RTO. You can see both it indicated or selected there and indicated there on the iCast. Let's go ahead and test our flight controls. So we'll pull up the flight control page. I don't know if you were aware, but if you click on the yoke, you can raise it or lower it, get it out of your view. It's kind of nice to see here while we're doing our flight control checks. So we've got our ailerons and our flaperons along the wing, along with our spoilers, depending on the stage of on a flight, as well as whether we're on the ground or in the air. Some of those spoilers will deploy. And we have our elevator, as well as our rudder. So we'll start with the ailerons. Full left, full right, center, full down, full back, center, rudder full left, full right, center. Okay, flight controls are checked. Flight controls are checked. Ground equipment is clear. And before taxi checklist is complete. So, we are clear on the left. We are clear on the right. Let's go ahead and start our taxi. Taxi light on. Brakes are off. And give it about 25 to 30% N1 to get you rolling. And then as you get up to 5 or 10 knots, you can take a look at the ground speed down there. 5 or 10 knots, and then we'll slowly pull the throttles back. I find the 300 is actually more difficult to taxi than the 200. I think that's because the engines are more powerful on the 200. So I find, you can see I'm increasing the throttles there. I find that I have to kind of give it some throttle, pull the throttles back, give it some throttle, pull the throttles back. More than I have to in the 200. We're taxiing out, so let's get our flaps out. We were flaps 15 for takeoff today. So you can see the flaps running there. Magenta, like many things on the 777 and really Boeing airplanes in general. Magenta is the commanded position, and then that'll turn green as they actually reach their full position. Coming down out there. There you can see the leading edge slats. Okay, so our taxi route today is taxiway Foxtrot to Bravo, hold short of Oster. So we actually, Foxtrot rolls off to the left here, so we're just going to follow that along. There we go, flaps 15 are set. And when you make a kind of a 45-degree turn right here, it's not as important, but in general you want to make sure that you do turns about less than 10 knots. What you don't want to do is scrub the nose wheel. That'll actually cause it to imbalance. You can get a potential ICAS message for that, as well as have some control issues. So we'll continue down taxiway Foxtrot. Now, when you need to make very sharp turns, I have, first of all, again, keep it under 10 knots. If you want to, say, turn to the right, what you want to do is try to get that post right there, that column right there, aligned with where you want to go. So, for instance, if you're following a taxi line, a taxiway marking, you would want to put that taxiway marking on your column and then start your turn. So you actually have to wait to start your turn, because remember, this is a very long airplane, and the pilots are sitting about, what, 10 or 15 feet ahead of the nose wheel. So this is taxiway Bravo right here. So we're going to make a right turn. It's actually a pretty sharp right turn from where we're coming from. Well, a couple things we're going to do, assuming this catering truck doesn't hit us. We're going to, as much as possible, try to get that taxiway line off of that column. And second, because we don't want to stop during the turn, I'm going to give it a little bit of extra throttle while we turn. But what I don't want to do is go over 10 knots. You can see I'm actually at about 32% N1 right now. And now I can pull it back a little bit. I think this is more of a limitation of Flight Simulator or Prepared. I think the, if you've flown in these, any planes in Prepared or Flight Simulator for a while, you'll know that the ground friction model, as it's referred to, how it keeps track of how sticky or loose you are on the ground, is not very good. So think about if you're in your car, right? You can you start to give a little press on the gas and then let go of it. You're actually going to go for quite a while without stopping. That doesn't seem to happen so much here. Heard the little ding dong there. You see the little message there that the flight attendants have indicated that our cabin is ready. So with that, let's take a look at our before takeoff checklist. It is sensed that the flaps are at 15, in which they are, and so our before takeoff checklist is complete. So we're just, what are we passing here? Passing the fire station back there, and then we're coming up on, what, Terminal 5 Charlie here at Heathrow. A couple other things we're going to do. I'm going to turn terrain on my side. This will give me indications of any terrain warnings that I might need. The land is pretty flat outside of Heathrow, so that's not going to be too much of an issue. But it's good to do just in case. Not much weather in the area today, but we'll turn weather on the first officer's side. That's using Active Sky Next for the weather radar. So again, I'm not anticipating anything, at least on the initial climb out. When I checked the charts earlier, I actually didn't see much in the way of weather over the North Atlantic, going up to Iceland, Greenland, stuff like that. But we'll keep an eye on it. Okay. Actually, was having a little technical issue earlier, so I disarmed my auto throttles. So turn those back on. I'm just going to double check recall that I didn't miss anything. We are good to go. And then finally, we're flying offline today, but in general it's a good idea to make sure that that little traffic TFC indication is there on the ND, on the navigation display. And that's our TCAS system, our traffic collision avoidance system, which will display targets on the screen telling us where other planes are in our area. Very useful when you're on VATSIM. So you can click the traffic button again, that'll get rid of it. But we want it on. You'll also see that it says TA only. TCAS operates basically in two modes, TA, which is traffic advisory, and RA, which is resolution advisory. So if you've heard that traffic message come over occasionally, you'll usually see a target that turns yellow on your navigation display. Here we are coming up on Oster, so we'll hold short here. And then if the traffic gets really close, if the situation's getting really bad, you'll hear something like climb, or descend now, or something like that. And those will turn. Let's put the brakes on. That's what's called a resolution advisory, and you'll see indications on your PFD of where to fly and where not to fly. Because we're on the ground, we're getting traffic advisories only. We're not getting resolution advisories. Okay, so here we are holding short of Oster. That's going to end this lesson. Come back soon and we will do the takeoff and climb out. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.